You don't want to go to heaven. Really, you don't. And we can all give a hard pass to that kind of heaven we see in the popular imagination, that kind of sitting on a cloud, playing a harp sort of heaven, and doing that for all eternity. But even if we make heaven less of a caricature and get rid of the harps and the clouds, it is commonplace for us to imagine an eternity that is mistaken, or at least it is not a heaven revealed by Scripture in the ancient traditions of the church. Heaven is so much better than simply being a place of eternal rest. Let me tell you what I've discovered. If we haven't met, my name is Deacon Richard Hudzik, and I use this channel to hand on the faith, to pass on some nuggets that I've come across and are way too good to be kept only for myself. Today's video is a passing on to you of some of the book Surprised by Hope by Anglican Scripture scholar N.T. Wright. In a word or two, the book blew me away. It's not perfect, but his witty and engaging style and deep scholarship, a scholarship that's a heck of a lot deeper than I could ever dream of doing. This book by the former Bishop Wright tours Scripture and the Church Fathers to demonstrate that so much of our modern Christian talk about heaven misses the mark. Yes, you and I will die, and there will be some place or some mode of existence for some period of time, for some part of eternity. But there's more to come. The best is yet to come. And following N.T. Wright and others, we can begin to visualize what Scripture tells us when we, for a moment, step away from our Platonic philosophy, our semi-Gnostic inclinations that we do unwittingly hang on to in this 21st century. Now, this business of Platonism and Gnosticism, what I'm saying is that too often we think along the lines of body bad, spirit good. We begin to think that death is a way of escaping the body and permanently liberating the soul to some better eternal existence where all that happens is quiet rest and adoration. Well, if that's true, what happened to the creed that we recite at Mass every Sunday? In the Apostles' Creed, we say, I believe in the resurrection of the body. In the Nicene Creed, we say, I look forward to the resurrection of the dead in the life of the world to come. Well, where is the resurrection of the body, the resurrection of the dead, if that dead body is forever gone and only the spirit is eternally off in some place of eternal rest? Are the words about the resurrection of the body only pious phrases, only words for simple people, naive people projecting their own hopes onto something that will actually never happen? Well, to get to ignore the resurrection of all the dead, one has to abandon a lot of Scripture, a lot of our tradition. One has to embrace a Platonic theology and philosophy. Here's another angle that points out the problem of souls going off to someplace beyond forevermore. You know how the preachers say on Easter and at other times, but especially on Easter, and I've said it myself, we hear the expression, Jesus conquered death. No doubt that's true. I believe that from the bottom of my heart. But if Jesus is the only one who ever will rise from the dead, if the resurrection is a one-off event, well, what does Jesus' victory over death mean for me? I'm not trying to be flip or selfish here. Rather, I'm loving the Lord in a way that I hear him saying that death will ultimately never finally capture anyone, that we can be surprised by the hope of the resurrection. That hope is the promise of a resurrection for both Jesus and for you and me, for all those I love, and even those I don't love. A favorite gospel reading at funerals is from John's Gospel. You know, the the phrase, "In my Father's house there are many mansions," or many dwelling places. And from this, we meditate that even for someone like me, there is a place for me in heaven. It may be that my dwelling place will be modest. Maybe the person being buried after the funeral is, like me, entitled to only the humblest hovel in heaven. But N.T. Wright's book, Surprised by Hope, relates how Scripture scholars tell us that the Greek word used here for dwelling place is the word Greek speakers would use to talk about temporary housing. It's a place where one would stay only for a period of time. It's a way station on the way to somewhere else. Now, how long we will reside in our temporary lodging is a mystery that we can't discern this side of the grave. This is beyond us. Maybe temporary means tomorrow. Maybe it means unimaginable eons from now. We don't know. We need to return to thinking about heaven as being life after death. When we do that, heaven becomes a time when, in some fashion, in the future, we inhabit the material world, inhabit the world as the post-resurrection Jesus did. This is the point that Wright is making, that heaven involves ultimately the material world, albeit a world that is transformed, redeemed, and corrected. It's a world in which we dwell bodily, but without the burdens of age, illness, evil, and decay. I remember a number of years ago attending the funeral mass of one of my aunts. She lived to a ripe old age and was blessed with a good husband and many loving children. But in her final years of life, she was afflicted by painful and crippling arthritis. I believe she was in constant pain, especially in her back. Life was a trial for her. Nevertheless, I remember the priest's homily in which he talked about the day coming for my aunt when she would live a life free of pain. Perhaps she would return with her body that she had at age 30 to a time when she would again dance or move freely and laugh with the enjoyment of the good life. I didn't know what to think of the homily. Unknowingly, but deeply embedded, I guess, in a Platonic Gnostic view of the afterlife, I feared the good priest was simply telling tales, albeit pious and holy tales. He expressed the love of our Creator, but I wasn't prepared to go with the preacher on his speculations about the world to come. Well, let me be clear. Today, I think the priest was right. He was talking about what N.T. Wright was talking about. He was faithfully presenting what we Catholics believe. He was right, and I was wrong. Thinking and believing this way has huge implications for how we live today on this side of the grave. What this says, among other things, is that the material world is important. It says that we don't abandon this world as essentially meaningless because it will be abandoned and surpassed with the heaven that is wholly spiritual. No, that's not what we believe. Instead, I look forward to life after death. Eye has not seen, and ear has not heard, and the mind has not fathomed what God has ready for those who love Him. Next time, in the next video, let's talk about what difference this new way of thinking makes here and now, and I want to propose to you that it changes everything.